You you remember the other day I asked you, is it Elizabeth Arras? And I also said that you are probably closely related to Latinos. Well, the Arras, that role is a Spanish role, so it
Well,
confirms
funny
it.
enough, funny enough, Varas is actually a Latin American name.
Oh,
Yeah.
anyway, let's get this show on the roll. On the roll. Oh my God! It's that name Arras that I've been trying to call.
Aras. You need to be less aggressive, Kevin.
Anyway, welcome to Unpolished Dialogues, a podcast where raw and real conversations take center stage.
Join us as we dive into thought-provoking discussions on a wide range of topics. No filters, no scripts, just honest and candid conversations.
So sit back, relax, and get ready for an unpolished ride. Here we go. I'm your host, Kevin Watson, and with me, I have my co-host,
Elizabeth Aras. You see, Kevin, it doesn't need to be that aggressive when you say my last name. You don't have to say it that aggressively.
like Arras.
So Kevin, what are you sipping on?
My lovely specialty.
Tell us about your specialty that I know you're so fond of.
Cinnamon with oat creamer and water. It's delicious.
So he says. So he
Weird.
says. Yeah, you're a weirdo. So Kevin,
Yes.
the other day I learned that Spain has approved a number of new laws, one of them being paid menstrual leave. So female workers will now be allowed to take up to 5 days off each month while they are menstruating. And this will be funded by the Spanish government. And apparently, Spain is not the first country to pass such a law. Japan, Indonesia, South Korea, Taiwan, Vietnam, and Zambia came before Spain, but it's the first European country. So, do you dare to have any thoughts about this, Kevin?
You just want to put me in a very difficult
It's a
position
setup.
here. All right,
It's a
you want to
setup.
set me up. Listen, why should women get special treatment? I
Ooh.
want to ask those hardcore feminists. Do you think that this is fair? You're talking about equality. Do you think that women should be given this kind of preferential treatment? That's my question.
Well, let me bounce it back to you.
Yeah.
Women bleed for several days straight, yet we don't die. Do you want to be around us? Do you want to be up in our space during those days? Huh?
I'm just joking. No, listen, I am all for that. Whatever works. I do believe that women deserve to get that time off. But I dare to say that is why you have some men wanting to become women these days. They probably see all these great benefits and decide that I want some of those
really?
benefits,
Yeah, because bleeding once a month is so beneficial, right?
Oh,
you know what
my
we're gonna
God.
do? To our female listeners out there, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try to find one of those machines that I can hook up to Kevin, and we're gonna watch him as he experiences menstrual pain. How about that?
I say bring it on. Bring it
Okay.
on, Elizabeth. I'll
This
show
is
you.
a virtual handshake.
Yeah, it's a level playing ground. I'll show you that we can do it too.
Okay. It's on, Kevin. It's
I
on.
am just joking. Listen, I hate pain. I
No shit.
absolutely hate pain. I'm like a baby.
Exactly. Exactly. Oh
Oh my
my. But it would
God.
still
Yeah.
be fun. I'll
Yeah.
look into those machines and see how much they cost and we'll
Yeah.
figure that out.
It's interesting. Interesting times that we're living in, I would say.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But that's not what we're going to be talking about today, although menstrual cramps is a very essential topic. What I want to talk to you about today is we've touched on the subject of racism a number of times, and we've both mentioned our ethnic backgrounds in this podcast. And our listeners have asked to know more about us and our own experiences. And I think it's time to for us to have a conversation about our perceptions of race by sharing our own individual stories. And I'll go first, and then I'll pass it on to you, and then we can have an open dialogue about our experiences. How about that?
Oh yeah. I
Um,
would love to hear your experience for sure.
Let's
Yeah.
get started then.
Hmm.
So, I identify myself as Middle Eastern. My ethnicity, my ethnicity is Aramaean, and my nationality is Swedish. I'm comfortable with the terminologies Middle Eastern, West Asian, MENA, which stands for Middle Eastern and North African, visible minority, and non-white. It's interesting. We've mentioned this previously in the podcast that U.S. Census consider MENA people to be white, although MENA people face discrimination in both the housing and the work industry in the U.S. I think most of us from this community or region have been called Arabs in a derogatory way, or even worse, terrorists, just because we come from the same region. And many times I've corrected people, and I've received the response, potato potato. Um, yeah, and I admit that the fact that my people don't have a country confuses the situation even more. And because of that reason, it's even more hurtful for someone like me to be told to, quote unquote, go back to my country. And this has resulted in a lot of confusion for me personally over the years. In fact, my first memory of being told that I'm something other than Swedish was when I was 6. So we were given the assignment to draw our native flags in school. Now, bear in mind, I'm born in Sweden and I have no real motherland. My people have a flag.
So I'm assuming you drew
Yeah.
the flag of Sweden, right? You drew the Swedish flag,
Well,
right?
well, no, that was not an option. That was
Really
not an option. No.
interesting.
Yeah, so my that was not the task, right? The teachers, I mean, I don't think that they had any bad intention. I think the whole idea was to celebrate where we come from, but I'm 6. I have no idea where I come from except for my parents' home, okay?
Hmm. Yeah.
And if you like, we do have a flag and it's always hung in my home, but I'm 6. I'm not thinking about the fact that that's my native flag, right? And you can't find this flag in an atlas because again, we don't have a country. So I wasn't really sure what I was supposed to draw. And the teachers, well, I mean, they could have asked my parents, I guess, if that was the something they had thought out, but their solution wasn't very well thought out. So their assumption was that I had to come from the same country as the only other Middle Eastern girl in my class.
Right.
So
Because
they
you
had me
did you
draw.
guys look alike? Did you guys have
Well,
similar
we
features?
did.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
did, but we didn't come from the same country.
Yeah. No, I understand. I understand. Yeah.
So she knew she came from Lebanon because her either one or both of her parents were from there, and maybe she had been there. A lot of people go back to their home countries during the summers, right? So she was from Lebanon, and she drew the Lebanese flag. So the teachers were like, "Yeah, you should also draw the Lebanese flag because obviously our all Middle Eastern people are the same, I guess." And I was pretty happy. I drew a flag, I got a stick, and I like it was a nice flag. And then I came home and my parents were like, "Why are you holding the Lebanese flag?"
Oh my God. That's not our flag. Come on, Elizabeth.
It's like
Come on.
it's nice and
Haven't we
all,
taught
but
you
like
better than that?
yeah,
Oh
exactly. So
my
it
God.
did result in a lot of confusion, and I still
Yeah.
remember that up to today. And I'm using this as an example to where I that was the first time I was told that, well, you're not Swedish, you're something else, right? Like I knew I was from Sweden. I knew the Swedish flag. That's something I had seen and I acknowledged many times, but all of a sudden it
Yeah.
was like, you're supposed to draw your native flag, and it's like, what the hell is
Yeah.
my native flag? You
Yeah.
know.
You're a Swedish
And I
girl.
don't
Come on.
well, I mean, I didn't know what I was.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't think that all Swedes are racist, but my experience is that a lot of Swedes have this tendency to remind non-white people that they're not Swedish enough. So they'll ask me where I'm actually from, or they'll compliment me on my ability to pronounce and speak in Swedish. And I'll humor them, right? I'll be like, yeah, I come from Stockholm.
Oh,
And they'll
but that's where
continue.
you're from, though, Elizabeth.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
where you were born.
and
That's
if
where
they
you
ask
grew
me
up,
to
right?
specify, yeah, and if they ask
Mm-hmm.
me to
Mm-hmm.
specify, I'll tell them which town I grew up in, right? But but that's not what they're actually interested in. They're interested in knowing what I'm not. And this has nothing to do with the color of my skin, because as we have established, I'm very pale.
Definitely. You
But
could pass for a white person, in my view, that is.
in your
Like,
view, yeah.
yeah, like if you should ever take a trip to Jamaica, you'd be
Mhm.
seen as white. You're so pale.
Well, so this is the thing though. In Sweden, I am recognized to be something that Swedish people will call svartskalle, and that means literally blackhead. So it has to do with the color or texture of my skin, or the way I present myself, or just being a louder human being,
Oh my
more
God.
vocal.
No, but it's just ridiculous. Blackhead. What does that mean? Like your hair is not even black. Like I've seen your hair in person, and it has like a brown shade, right?
Yeah, I'm a
Which is
brunette.
similar
Yeah.
to a lot of white people, I think.
Well, it's more than just the hair per se.
Okay.
It's my demeanor, right? And I'm
Yeah.
not. I can't sit here and say that the way I've been treated is worse than anybody else. Because Sweden is, I would say, systematically segregated, and it's like the racism will rank on the top. We'll have Afrophobia. Second, we'll have Islamophobia, and I'm neither. I will fall into the third worst, quote unquote worst category, which is basically all other non-white people. So, and that's my experiences from growing up in a predominantly white country. And Kevin, you just mentioned it too, like you grew up in a predominantly black country, and also like a former British colony. And I would like to hear your experiences and your takes on this topic.
Well, my experience was not as traumatizing as yours, for want of a better word. But growing up in Jamaica as a multiracial person was not as easy as some would think. Jamaica may embrace diversity and people's differences, but ignorance and prejudice still exist there. By the way, Jamaica motto is out of many, one people, and the country's history does reflect this diversity. First came the Spanish in 1494,
Mm.
followed by the English in 1655. The English then brought enslaved black people from Africa to work the plantations. And after slavery was abolished, the English needed people to work the fields and perform other tasks. So they brought South Asians from India, which were called indenture workers. And there is also a derogatory name for South Asians in Jamaica. Jamaicans call them coolie. So I hated that name when I was growing up, the name coolie, because it was a very, racist way to refer to Indians. Then, of course, came the Chinese and so on. So Jamaica is truly a multicultural country in this way. Being multiracial in Jamaica and somebody who looks more South Asian, of course, as I said before, I was called Coolie. Some people would call me Coolie Babu, which I hated so much, right? People also made ignorant comments to me, telling me to go back to my country because I look more South Asian. Most of Jamaica's population has more African ancestry and identifies as black, but I still see myself as Jamaican because I am a combination of black, South Asian, and European. I do not believe my ethnicity defines me as a person. I'm proud of my heritage and my culture, and I hope that one day we can all see each other as equal and embrace the diversity that makes us unique.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, your multi-race technically represents the predominant races that exist in or have existed throughout the years in Jamaica. You're literally the example of a Jamaican, it sounds like.
Absolutely. Which is why I feel so bad when people tell me that I'm not Jamaican and I should go back to my country, my own Jamaican people, right? And I often feel like I don't fit in anywhere, any of the established racial categories. Because as a multiracial person, I don't look 100% black. I don't look 100% South Asian. And obviously, you can't see my European ancestry by looking at me, right? I guess my facial features and the texture of my hair, will have people saying, oh, he's South Asian because of that, right? But I do embrace all my heritage, all my ancestry. I can't just recognize myself or identify myself as any one race. So I do recognize my multiracial background and I embrace that.
As you should.
Yeah. People sometimes try to categorize me based on my appearance or make assumption about my cultural background, which can be frustrating and hurtful, I believe. Some people would say, oh, are you from Sri Lanka? Or they will assume that I am from some place in India. I share an experience I had. I went to the gym one day and I was at the counter waiting for the attendant to sign me in. And this South Asian guy came up and he started to speak to me in Punjab. And I was like, huh? And he repeated what he said. And I was like, I don't understand what you're saying. And he was like, oh,
like, bro,
I'm
that didn't
sorry.
help.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought you were you spoke Punjab because you look like a Punjab, right? Indian, South Asian. So that kind of assumption, I get it all the time. And it's difficult to feel like I don't fully belong to any one cultural community or like I have to constantly explain or justify myself to others. However, I must also add that being multiracial also has its advantages.
Oh, yeah?
I think I have a
Tell us.
unique, yeah, I think I have a unique perspective on issues related to race and identity. And I appreciate the
Mhm,
richness and the complexity of different cultural traditions. Like I
mhm,
embrace my Indian culture, or South Asian culture. I embrace my
mhm,
African culture, and I also
mhm,
embrace that European side also, right? I
mhm,
enjoy connecting with people from different backgrounds and learn about their cultures. So
mhm,
despite the challenges of being multiracial, I'm proud of my mixed heritage. And I believe that
mhm.
it's important to celebrate and honor all the aspects of my identity.
So
Yeah.
may I, if I can ask you, in a US census, or not US, sorry, scratch that. In a document where you're asked to tick what your race is, what do you tick?
Oh my God. Listen, whenever I see those documents, right,
Love them.
I'm like, all of the above. There's
There you
no
go.
all of the above there, but I'm like, where should I tick here? I can actually tick everything on this piece of
Yeah.
on this piece of paper.
And and that's the thing, it's not easy. It's not it's like we
Yeah.
live in a world where a lot of people are mixed or even adopted, and who's to say besides the person filling it out themselves what they identify themselves at. And I think and I just hate the whole concept of race, because I view it as a social construct, and essentially what people actually want to know, my theory is what they actually want to know is whether I'm white or not. That's it. They don't care about the in betweens. And because I don't partake in any of those narrow-minded categories, I rather just say that I'm non-white, so that it's a reflection of them rather than a reflection of me. And I mean, I don't want to take away from anyone's pride. Like, I love that you're celebrating all of your backgrounds, right? I love that. And I don't want to take away from anyone's pride of being black or brown or anything else. But if I know what your if I know that you identify yourself as Jamaican, then I rather refer to you as Jamaican. Or if you I don't know, if you categorize
Listen,
yourself
I
within a
want you to
certain
refer to me.
region.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I want you to refer to me as a hybrid.
Oh yeah.
Yes,
Explain,
I'm a
Kevin.
hybrid class, right? With come on.
so this is my so this is Kevin. He's a hybrid.
I identify as a hybrid. Okay. So,
Okay,
no,
that's
I
fine.
agree with
And
you. I agree
that's up
100%
to
with you.
you.
Yes, of course.
And that's the thing. You should feel free to say that. You should feel free to say all of the above, or say I'm a hybrid, or whatever that
Come on.
word
Are you
might
laughing at
be.
me, Elizabeth? Come on.
Not at
You think
all.
it's funny?
I'm just
Huh?
humored by your invention. Yeah, your invention here. You're being
Yes.
very creative. No, but
Yeah.
whatever that thing may be, like if it's a new type of race that is blended, or if it's an ethnicity or a cultural that you feel like you belong to a certain culture, like a Caribbean, or you speak a certain language as a group of people, so you feel like you belong to them. Well, that's positive in my point of view, right? That's you celebrating you and feeling like you belong. While race makes, I would think, most people just uncomfortable.
Yeah. And I do agree with you that this whole concept of race is really a primitive and outdated one
Mhm.
because it is based on physical appearance.
Mhm.
And obviously, with the kind of globalization that we have now, where people can be at different places in the world within just a
Yeah.
matter of a few hours, right? You will have more people like me all over the world, multiracial, which cannot be defined by any of these racial categories.
Mhm.
right? The whole idea of race is something that we actually use to distinguish ourselves or group ourselves, because as human beings we tend to want to always have this distinction among ourselves,
Mhm.
even within,
Separate.
yeah, to separate ourselves from others and to believe that we are more special than others. And even within a group of people that are identified as the same race, they will also create smaller groups within that group of people. Like when we look at the Hutu and the Tutsis in Africa that were killing each other, they're all black people, they're all Africans. But the
Mhm.
Tutsis looked a little different from the Hutus, right? Maybe in terms of their height and so on. And they just hated each other.
Well, it was also because of the shades of color, but
Which is
that
which is just
influence,
ridiculous, eh?
but that was influenced by colonialism.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
It
this use of race to categorize individual is not only inaccurate, but can
Mhm.
also lead to harmful biases and
Mhm.
discrimination, like you mentioned, right? As a society, I think we should remove this concept of race and embrace the idea of diversity and inclusivity, recognizing and celebrating the unique differences and
Yes.
similarities of all
Preach.
people, regardless of their physical appearance. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
another argument that I want to present here is that there is no biological or scientific support of race.
Mhm.
There
Mhm.
is no genetic or biological basis for racial categories. Um,
Mhm.
as humans, we
Mhm.
share more than 99% of our
Wow.
DNAs with
Oh,
each other,
that's
right?
amazing.
Yeah, differences in physical appearance between individuals or groups are the result of genetic variations that have developed over time due to factors such as climate, geography, and natural selection. So, back
Mm.
thousands of years ago, when the first group of people migrated out of Africa into Eurasia, after being there for thousands of years, what happened
Mhm.
is that they had to evolve to survive in that climate, and that's
Yeah.
essentially, it's a survival mechanism, survival of the fittest, natural selection. And
Mhm.
so it's the same thing with warmer countries. You'll find that people's skin will be darker
Mhm.
to help protect us from the ultraviolet sun rays. Being in these warmer climates, it's ridiculous that we use these little variations to judge each other and to discriminate against each other and to look at ourselves, group ourselves, and say, oh, because I am white, then I'm more superior, and because you're
Yeah.
black, then you're
Yeah.
inferior. Ridiculous. I'll use this word primitive again. It's a very primitive way of thinking. Uneducated. I think a lot of people who push this agenda, my perspective is that they're insecure about themselves.
Yes.
They're afraid. So it comes from a
Mhm.
place of fear also, right? And
Mhm.
it also comes from a place of ignorance, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So I read a story the other day that
Mm-hmm.
I think is a good contrast to what you were just talking
Mm-hmm.
about. So it took place in Howard University, which is in Washington D.C. And
Mm-hmm.
Howard University is a an HBCU school. And for those that don't know, HBCU stands for Historically Black Colleges and Universities, and their
Yeah.
primary intention it's to serve Black students. And a white student is suing their law school for racial discrimination, alleging that the school created a hostile education environment. The student attended the institution between 2020 and 2022 until he was expelled due to numerous harassment complaints from his peers, including sharing racially offensive materials via social media. And the student compares himself as a Black student in a primarily white university. And I find it very offensive for him to even make that comparison. And it's it brings us to the whole conversation around racism versus prejudice. So some say that everyone can be prejudiced, but not everyone can be racist because prejudice is equal opportunity or equal playing field. However, to be racist, you need to have the power over so that you can negatively impact a group of people. So Kevin, do you think that he experienced racism?
I think it's certainly possible.
Explain
I
yourself.
do agree. I do agree that if this individual made racial remarks about the institution or about Black people in an institution that is primarily Black, right? Then the institution have all right to remove this hateful person from the institution. There's nothing wrong with that.
Mhm.
However,
Mhm.
the argument that white people cannot experience racism is flawed in my view, right? And
Oh,
it
yeah.
is based, yes, because racism, if we look at the definition of racism, racism is when someone is treated unfairly or discriminated against because of their race or ethnicity. And we talk about race being based on physical appearance. So it has to do with your facial features, the texture of your hair, the color of your skin, and so on. It
Mhm.
can happen in many different ways, such as name calling,
Mhm.
exclusion, or even physical violence. Now, racism can
Mhm.
be based on stereotypes or prejudices about a person's race, and it can affect people of all races, including white people. That is my view, right? You made a very good point that, of course, anybody can be prejudiced, right?
Mhm.
But I think racism is directly related to somebody being prejudiced because if you're racist, it means that you're prejudiced. But being prejudiced don't necessarily mean that you're racist because
Exactly.
you can not like somebody because of other things about the person, right?
Mhm.
These days we have situations where transgender people experience prejudice, right? Or gay people may experience that, and it's not a racial problem. It's more a sexual orientation problem, right?
Mhm.
Where people look at somebody and say, "Oh, because you're gay, then you don't fit in this
Mhm.
group," right? Treating someone badly based on their race, regardless of whether they're white, black, or any other race, is a form of racism, in my view. Racism is
Mhm.
not limited to just one group. I would say it is a systematic issue that affects everyone regardless of their racial background. All right. So it's not only exclusive to black people or people that are non-white. I do
Mhm.
understand that historically white people have had positions of power and privilege in society and therefore may not have experienced the same level of discrimination and oppression as people who are non-white. However, this does not mean that they are immune to racism. They can still be a victim of prejudice and discrimination based on their race. That's just my view.
Well, it's I mean it's definitely an interesting topic.
I just want to
Yeah.
say that if we
Mhm.
embrace the idea that only certain groups of people can experience racism, we are
Mhm.
actually perpetuating inequality rather than promoting equality. That's just my view.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
discrimination and prejudice should never be acceptable, no matter who the target
No.
is.
No, no,
So,
I
yeah,
totally agree with that.
yeah,
I just wanna say though, like, I do
uh huh,
think in general, there I mean, it's definitely not an equal playing field in any shape or form, and
yeah,
if you look at it, I don't know this person's sexuality, but white straight men
mm-hmm,
are highly unlikely to face any form of oppression. My point of view is this that this guy tried to pretend to be a victim, and that's just based on this case in
Yeah,
itself.
but it doesn't mean
But
though that
it's
because it doesn't mean that because somebody is this likely to experience oppression mean that they may never experience racism though.
no, but I will just feel less sad about them. Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah, listen, I think that it's important to recognize that acknowledging racism against white people does not diminish
Mhm,
or erase the experiences of people who are non-white, right?
mhm.
Is also acknowledging that we need to get rid of this whole idea of racism.
Yes, or race.
Yeah, that's just my view. If we're going to
Mhm,
embrace racism against white or embrace being prejudiced against white, then we are actually embracing racism in my view. We are embracing
mhm,
discrimination. The same thing that we as non-white go through, we are now putting someone else through that. Right?
mhm,
I
mhm,
think that as we work towards equality, it's important to have an open and honest conversation about racism and discrimination and listen to the
mhm,
experiences of others, right? I'm
mhm.
sure
Yeah.
you'll find somebody who is white who will tell you that, oh, I don't have a problem with my black brothers and sisters, but they seem to have a problem with me because they don't like me just because I'm white. And
Definitely possible. Definitely
yeah.
possible. Absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, if somebody wants to share their experience on Unpolished dialogues,
I know.
you may
Listen, I'm
guest
just saying.
us.
Of course, we're not. It's unlikely to hear a story from somebody who's white that they've
Mhm.
experienced racism, of course, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't happen.
Well, yeah. I just don't like it when people are pretending to be victims when they are actually thriving in life and
Oh
nothing
my
bad
god.
happens to them or have any implications on their future, but that's just my point of view.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
No.
less likely to feel sorry for you. That's all I'm
Yeah.
saying. Well, on that note,
Yeah. I don't know, Elizabeth. I just don't agree with the argument that
no,
white people cannot experience
no,
racism. I think it's
I,
a
I,
flawed
I,
one. It's ridiculous.
yeah. It's not that I'm not saying that, but I'm less likely to say that because I
You
want
just
to
don't
say
want
that it's
you just don't want to agree with it. No, what's the problem with agreeing with that statement?
it takes away a little bit from who I am as a
But
person
no, and that's the point.
and
I'm
my
saying,
race cards.
and that's why I said that, recognizing or acknowledging that white can experience racism does not diminish your experience, though. It does not. And what is the aim? What is the goal here?
My goal is to diminish the word race. That's my goal.
This would be my goal.
Yes.
My goal would be to have equality. I believe that it's very important that we work towards unifying the human race and realize that there's
Mhm.
no such thing as white and black people. They're just people with different
Mhm.
physical features, and that's okay. That's okay if
Yeah.
we look different. I wouldn't want to I wouldn't want to see people looking exactly like me walking around.
Well, I mean, we're heading that way, Kevin.
No,
We're
but I
heading
still I
towards
still
a
think I'm
hybrid class.
unique. I still think I'm unique
You
in
I
in many
mean, you're
respects,
unique today, but you will not be unique in 25 years from now,
Oh
I
my
can tell
god,
you
stop
that.
that. Stop that. There will still be there will still be
Well, that's
uniqueness.
okay. You will
Although we
still be
share a
Kevin.
lot of our
Yeah,
DNAs, there are some little
yeah.
minute things there that makes us a little bit different, But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't embrace each other. We should appreciate that
No. Yeah.
uniqueness, right? Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm. Hmm. No,
Yeah.
I totally agree with you, and
Yeah.
I think we've
Out
had a
of time.
long and
Yes.
fruitful conversation as per
Oh my
usual.
God.
I
Elizabeth, we could go on and
Yes,
on, don't know.
I
That's how our
know.
conversations always go. Just on and on and on.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's I don't know. I hope that people are enjoying our conversations. We would
Yeah.
love to hear what you think about our conversations. So
Mm-hmm.
please connect with us through Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, and follow us and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform so you don't miss any episodes. And yeah, I think. Do we have anything else that we want to add,
No, I
Kevin?
would
Because I
say
know that you're
share.
always tempted.
Yeah, I would say share with us your own experience. Being
Mhm.
someone who is non-white, multiracial like myself. Although we
Mhm.
want to move around, we want to move away from that term, race, multiracial.
Mhm. Mhm.
If you're a
Mhm.
hybrid like myself,
There you go.
tell us about your experience, right?
Yes.
But yeah, until next time, this is Unpolished Dialogue signing out. Yep.
Peace out.